Okay, let's talk about HTML from a high level perspective. HTML stands for the Hypertext Markup Language. We talked about hypertext before. It's the hypertext is the really ancient idea of like taking text and clicking on it and having it linked to something else. So that's where HTML comes from. The latest living standard was updated on 31st of May 2024, which would be today, yesterday. And we're gonna go to the documentation, the standard specification. Did a separate video about how to find that and why I use this instead of everything else. And we're gonna interpret the spec here. Okay, so the first thing is the HTML syntax. What is it about? Writing HTML documents. You can read all this on your own. Writing an HTML document. I might need to zoom in on this. Actually, do you guys need me to zoom in? How about that? A little bit better. So this again, so an HTML syntax, documents must consider the following parts. A byte order mark. This is a special ancient thing that you don't need to worry about. Any number of comments in white space. White space is just stuff you can't see. That includes spaces and tabs and thing. A doc type, which we'll talk about. Any number of comments in white space. And a document element in the form of HTML. And then comments. And then stuff inside of the HTML, which is part of the document. Okay. So what I want to talk about today specifically, though, is the elements. So we did another video already about this, which is right after this, to talk about here this breakdown. So there's a doc type, there's the HTML, and there's an attribute here. But let's talk about the actual little, they're called tokens, these little things here. So the start tags. A start tag. Start tags must have the following format. The first character must be a less than sign, sometimes called an angle bracket. This is the Unicode for that. And I mean, at this point, we're going to go ahead and talk about what Unicode is, okay? So Unicode, what is Unicode? Unicode is the specification that gave us emojis and all kinds of cool things. I mean, if you want to ask ChatGPT, we can do that. What is Unicode? And use universal encoding standard that allows computers to represent and manipulate characters from nearly all languages in the world, including Klingon, by the way, and unique numbers to each character. Yeah, and it can be used to display text on the screen. Its purpose is to ensure that the digital devices can display the same thing. So the idea of Unicode is pretty simple. Unicode just says use the same sort of thing, text to represent every possible thing that could be displayed. I do feel like we need a separate video on that, but that's going to get us for enough for today. But when we go back to the specification standard, this means it's a Unicode character. So that's what that's about. That's why I told you about that. I will make a separate video on Unicode and we'll dive into it. It's kind of cool. The next few characters are a start tag. It must be the element's tag name. So we have this, and then we have the tag name. If we go back to our example, in this case, we have there's one, and then we have the tag name, HTML, right? Immediately, you can see that this up here is something different, right? There's an exclamation point there. That's because, and I talked about this in another video, this is an SGML. This is technically not a part of HTML. It's a part of the HTML5 standard, but it says, hey, get ready, an HTML document is coming. But there's the tag that has been mentioned. And then if there are to be attributes in the next step, they must be first one or more ASCII white spaces. What is an attribute? So I'm deliberately doing this. I'm not showing you the screen. Sorry. Here we go. Let's do this again. So the first character is a start tag, is a less than sign. The next few characters of the start tag must be the element's tag name. Now, again, people, I'd encourage you to make sure, please use the right terminology when you're talking about this stuff. It makes it so much easier, and I'm going to screw it up, and I'm going to work my best to use the same terminology as well. So what is a tag, for example? People constantly call, a tag, people will say, yeah, use the HTML tag, right? What they actually mean, I'm almost positive, is element. They mean element and not tag. Okay, so what is an element? An element is the combination of potentially two tags, or it might be a void element where it only has one tag. So in this case, the tag begins and ends with a less than sign. their start tags must have the following format. They begin with less than sign, and they end with a greater than sign, and they have a tag name and then one or more attributes. As this, all this stuff says that it's got, here we go, lang equals whatever, right? That is an attribute. An attribute is a key value pair separated by an equal sign with, I believe, optional white space. Let's see, the tag name, blah, blah, blah. After the attributes or tag name, there are no attributes, blah, blah, blah. And if it's a void element, that means then there may be a single solidus character, a slash, on the foreign elements. That means it's actually okay. This is not valid, but having a slash there for a void element like a break is okay, and it's a part of the leftover standard. So having a BR slash like that is okay. See how it's okay? That's because it's a void element. That means it doesn't need it. In previous specifications, you had to do that, but you no longer need to do that as long as HTML5 knows that it is a void tag. What is a void tag? Once again, a void tag is a tag that has no required closing tag. So as an element, so here we go. So we got body, that's the start tag, and we have a slash body, which is the closing tag. Or end tag, as I said here. Let's use the right terminology. And so there you go. Attributes. Attributes are key value pairs that are separated by an equal sign. And it's actually the use of the quotes around the value is actually optional, but it's usually good practice to use that. May be written in any mix of ASCII low or ASCII up. Attribute values are a mixture of text and character references. Attributes can be specified in 4 ways. So you can have an attribute that's by itself, right? It does not have a value. You can have an unquoted attribute value, which is like this, which we talked about. Or you can have it have quoted, and it can be single quoted or double quoted. If single quotes and double quotes are effectively the same, last I checked, unless I remember. So there you go. There are a number of predefined elements to do certain things, and there's also special attributes. You can read more in the specification about that. For our purposes, though, you know that a document, a web document, is composed of elements, and those elements can be either regular elements that have start and end tags, or they can be void elements that just don't have an end tag and have an optional slash at the end. And that is it. And then each of these elements can have one or more attributes, which are key value pairs separated by an equal sign. That is it. That is the structure of all HTML documents in the world, and they all comply to that specification. So that gives you hopefully a good sense of what it's going to be like. We're going to drill down into the different major elements next.